Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John, and we have a special meeting tonight. This is part two of T4 versus C2, examining the conflicting statements of D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer regarding the Harvey Lillard adjustment by JOAQUIN Valdivia Tor, DC, and Joseph FOLEY, DC. Please forgive me, Joaquin, if I mispronounced your name. But we also have Joe Foley with us today. Oh, we've got Jessica coming in. Let me let some new people in. Welcome, Jessica. So we're on the sixth page of this document, and I'm working hard to put this document on the YouTube channel. We'll post it out there, but we're on page six of this document. Jessica, I sent it to you before, and we're right at the first paragraph after the quote. BJ presented more descriptions, okay? So just so you know where we are. And I want to start reading, but does anybody have anything they'd like to start with or mention anything? We're going to get rolling then.
Let's
Okay,
rock.
let's rock. BJ presented more descriptions of Dee Dee's concerns for cervical adjusting in 1952. Again, BJ stated Dee Dee feared cervical adjustments and only adjusted them with extreme caution. If Dee Dee truly had this fear, it does not seem plausible that this very first attempt at adjusting a spinal vertebra would be at C2. I agree with that. If we consider BJ's statement, then maybe Dee Dee said it was dorsal because he knew if his students treated, in quotes, the neck and killed someone, this chiropractic idea would not last. It was safer for Dee Dee to say it was a dorsal. That's what BJ's argument is. And I think that's exciting. And just to get back to it, there's a lot of people, they've said C1. I hear that all the time. BJ was saying C2, and Dee Dee was saying C4. And Dee Dee said emphatically he adjusted C4.
T
I pres
T4.
T4, excuse me, T4. Thank you for the correction. And I had an upper cervical guy. He had a little bit of a no way, absolutely with me. And one plausible model is also tensegrity. You move something in the system, change something in the system, it affects the entire system, not just the segment. So I really think that's a plausible argument as well. I'm going to read the quote unless anybody has anything else to say. Here it comes. We can remember back in those early days when D.D. Palmer treated, in quotes, cervical vertebra. Medical men said it was extremely dangerous to move cervical vertebra. To do so meant to pro capitals produce a dislocation. Even even farther, uh, even father was afraid and would not touch them except with extreme caution. So much was this true that instead of announcing results he secured in cervical treatments, in quotes, it was in his book, he said it was dorsal instead. This was so with Harvey Lillard's case of deafness. So that's from BJ's quote. And like you guys stated, it's 1952 when he's saying this. He has said it a few times. And I think someone sent a message to me today that in Stevenson said, I don't remember reading this quite honestly in Stevenson, that he waited 8 years before he was teaching cervical adjusting. I don't know if that's true. Is that's not
Not
true?
true. Not true.
Okay, good. Because I didn't read that. I don't remember reading that in there. So thank you for that clarification. Okay, this is our writing again. In the 1957 book, History in the Making, BJ enumerated points about the Lillard event. Again, he stated the bump was in the neck, then added that Dee Dee adjusted Lillard with three light, quick, sharp movements. In this section, BJ is also implying that his father recognized the possibility of a spinal adjustment resolving deafness did not work with the anatomy at the time. However, Dee Dee knew there was a neural connection,
Neural.
neural connection And reason there must be one, as Lillard could hear, but the anatomist in the books he read could not show a connection. So that's what we're just talking about right now. All right, I'm going to go down this list, okay? 21. It was about this time that Harvey Lillard came into the picture with the bump in the neck. 22. Father gave three light, quick, sharp movements on that bump, and Harvey's hearing was restored. 23. Why do we mention they were light, quick movements? 24. Because Father was afraid to give any heavy shoves, twists, or wrenches, thinking he would paralyze Harvey. So that's
Is that a quote from
a quote from
57, Joe?
BJ. That's
From
a
History in
quote
the
from
Making?
BJ. History in the
Yeah,
making, right?
the reference there is reference 31, page 15 and 16. So let
Yeah,
me
thanks
just
for
scroll
History in the
down and
Making then.
that. Yeah. See what 31 is.
So
I think
BJ
it's
he had cited
History in the Making, but
yeah. I'm going to go to the next section, okay? BJ continues in History in the Making with the same arguments as to why his father said T4. BJ directly stated he was present and saw what was adjusted on Harvey Lillard. And here's the quote. My father was at all times and in all ways an honest man, not given to misrepresentation, evasions, or deceit in anything he said, wrote, or printed. He was factual in all professional statements but one, which we here now correct. He consistently and repeatedly have said it was not fourth dorsal vertebra, but was axis that was adjusted in Harvey Lillard. Why this discrepancy, this disagreement? In those early days, there was no mention of vertebral subluxations in any book on anatomy or orthopedic surgery. It was something new, even to my father. All medical books, this is caps, were full of dislocations. All medical books said that if anything happened in the neck bone, it was a dislocation, and all strenuously warned and advised against any fooling with bones of the neck, particularly because to do so would produce a dislocation and produce complete paralysis of the body below. What had father done? Had he set dislocations? If so, it was a dangerous thing to do. In those early days, father's idea was in stage and growing, I don't, pious?
pains.
Pain in
Growing
growing pains.
pains.
I printed copy and it's not a very clear copy, I'll be honest. So in pains, growing pains. He did not want anybody to do anything to necks for fear of consequences. He thought his early students stay away
Taught its early
taught
students.
his early students stay away from the neck because you might produce paralysis and destroy and thus destroy my new work, which it just beginning to take shape. If some of you boys should fool around with necks and paralyze people, you easily could kill my new work before we got established. For this reason only, my father converted,
Covered up.
covered up what he did, where he did it, to avoid dangers that could occur. For this reason only, he said what he did and where he did it was the fourth dorsal vertebra. Why do I say it was the axis? Because I was there and saw what he did, where he did it, and it was the axis. We since have learned much about cervical vertebra subluxations, which are common in all excuse me, I'm losing my place. Which since we've learned that cervical vertebral subluxations, which are common in almost every person, which are not dislocations, and adjusting them by hand only is easy and is not fraught with danger when have done correctly and efficiently. Okay. So he's saying by this time, 1957, we've done our research and we know what's going on there. And he's claiming now it's C2, right? And Joe, did he say that anywhere before this time period?
Again, that's in the 50s where he says
Yeah.
it's the neck, and I think this is the first time that he says it's the axis, and that he says he was personally present. This is taking place in the late 50s. To say he was there and he saw what happened is a new comment to be taking place decades, 50 years after the actual event took place.
So, even, coming up with one new thing, right? C2 instead of T4, but then also saying that you were there. I don't know. Did Dee Dee say? I know he said multiple times he was but a lad, right? I think he was 13 years old at the time. Does that acknowledge that he was in the room, or really this is the first time this is actually coming up? That's not an acknowledgement that he was there. That's just stating the boy was a lad. How in the world does he know? Is that right?
That's all that it is. He was a 13-year-old kid and doing 13-year-old kid stuff. BJ was certainly interested in his father's work, so I don't want to say that he had no interest
Oh,
in
no.
this, but to say he was present at that moment. This is the first time that concept has been brought to light, to say he was physically present in the room.
Okay, thank you for that clarification because that's an important one. Like I said last time, is that I've had people say that, BJ was his note taker and taking notes in his magnetic healing office and those type of things, but that's nowhere written either.
I think that's probably a combination of two stories. There's stories
Okay.
of BJ taking his father's notes that Dee Dee wrote on paper, put his thoughts down, wrote them, refined them, new draft, crinkled up, and BJ was emptying the trash, and stories that he saved. I think that's plausible that BJ did that, but
Yeah.
that's different than saying he was present as a script in taking notes. There was no clinical notes in Dee Dee's records. It's not like
Yeah.
today's things where you're taking notes to say, here's what I did on this page, here's what I found, here's what I did. That kind of stuff wasn't taking place there. So Dee Dee wasn't taking notes on his patients that we've ever seen. So I think somebody's combining that story to say, well, BJ was looking at his father's notes, therefore he wrote down when Dee Dee said he adjusted C2, BJ wrote that down because he was taking notes. I think the stories are getting squished together there.
Gotcha. Thanks for that clarification.
When did upper cervical start to become more prominent? Upper cervical care.
The early 30s is when was it A.A. Weinstein wrote kind of the first upper cervical book, and BJ read it, became interested in it, and in the early 30s began to do the hole-in-one, and obviously subluxation specific, adjustment specific, I think was 36. So that's when the emphasis begins to change to a atlas or on some occasions axis adjustment. It was taking place in the mid 30s is where that push from BJ Palmer began to take place, and it really continued into the late 50s. Heinz, go ahead.
That's where I was going with that. This is 25 years later. I just wanted, before I jumped in on it, say, isn't it also potentially part of his intention here to validate what he's become a proponent of with upper cervical work by saying this is C2? That really did C2, and trying to get.
I think that's an obvious observation. Is Dee Dee was saying it was the dorsal, but that doesn't fit BJ's upper cervical emphasis beginning in the early 30s and continuing really through into the late 50s, and before there was really a return to acknowledgement that subluxations could exist below atlas and axis on a rare occasion. It was okay. Those were deemed misalignments. They weren't deemed true subluxations. Only the atlas axis was a true subluxation, really up until BJ's passing.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So in 57, he's putting stuff out here to help validate stuff that he now is a proponent of, and saying, this is Dad's work. This is what he really did, and that's why we're saying this is good stuff. He's adding fuel to his fire a little bit and writing this stuff.
Revisiting the historical narrative and
Yeah, yeah,
reinterpreting what happened. There's one concept here also that BJ in the 50s was talking about, the royal we, him and an eight.
yeah.
And that the concept would be that maybe the physical body of VJ Palmer was not present in the room at the time, but his innate was.
There you go.
And that may be because of the tone, and sometimes you see the capital we in there. We saw it, W-E, not him and the mouse in his pocket, but him and his innate. And that's what he's saying. He was present because, of course, innate was everywhere at the time.
Right.
Now, I may be misquoting this, but BJ said, I'm not using I anymore because it's me and God, or me and innate. Is that right?
Me and innate.
We use we. That was his intention.
I think that is a appropriate representation, that it's not just the single being of BJ Palmer, right, but the innate expression is all knowing, also is everywhere at all times. So innate knows everything, and his innate told him, whether he was present or not, that it was the axis that was adjusted.
Okay. I'm going to start the next section, okay? This is, in 1957, BJ stated the adjustment was light, quick tapping action. But in 1961, he stated it was crude and rough. When Harvey Lillard was adjusted, it consisted of a crudely and roughly shoving a bump in the neck, which got results. Fortunately, it was delivered on a one-piece, flat-top, narrow table about knee-high.
Didn't we talk before about, he said he laid him on the floor?
We're getting back to that.
Yeah. The floor. I'll read it then. Remember that in 1918, BJ wrote that Lillard was laid on the floor for the first adjustment. However, in 1961, he described a specific table. It is conflicting statements like this that cause one to question BJ's statement that he was present at the first adjustment and what spinal level was really adjusted. The following and last statement belongs to this book, Our Masterpiece. To his last book, Our Masterpiece, which we did in its entirety, and we have the full playlist of that. I actually really liked reading that book. Published after his death. During the final year of his life, BJ maintained the segmental level as the neck, but wrote, "We were told by our father about what happened to Harvey Lillard." This seems to imply that BJ was not present, but was told of the events by his father. One could argue that BJ was saying the mechanical ideas of chiropractic concepts revealed in Lillard's case were explained to him by his father. The true meaning of that line is not 100% clear. Here's the quote. "We were told by our father about the happening to Harvey Lillard. What did happen? Harvey told him he was in a stooped, cramped post position. He felt something pop in his neck, and he went deaf instantly. Father examined Harvey's rear neck and found a big lump, and when Father pressed it, Harvey winced with pain. Father reasoned that if a bump in the neck produced deafness, then if that bump were reduced, Harvey might get his hearing again. Father pushed that bump, and Harvey's hearing was restored. He later formulated a chiropractic concept." Now, I remember reading in 1910, DD was working. He said, "I worked for 9 years to bring this to fruition, or birth, or something," he said, of chiropractic. Here, BJ is saying he stumbled upon it and almost did it by accident.
Well, what we read earlier in this article was a quote that said that Didi said, "Until this happened, it was a theory in my mind, And when I did this to Harvey, chiropractic became a reality.
Yeah.
That's not a direct quote, but that's pretty close to what was stated earlier in this, as a quote earlier in this article.
And again, I'm
I see
gonna
Joe
do my
nodding his
best.
head,
I'm
so
gonna
I
get
got
this
pretty
posted
close
so
on it.
everybody has this article. Thanks for that clarification. That's very good. BJ Palmer present at first adjustment. That's the title. There is skepticism about BJ's presence at the first adjustment. BJ Palmer was very active in speaking, writing, and publishing over his nearly 60 years as the profession's leader. All could agree he produced a high volume of material consistently over 6 decades and expressed freely without holding back. And with the free use of capitalization, that's very true, and commas, what he knew and thought about chiropractic. BJ Palmer had ample opportunity to talk about the first adjustment. Yet he waited until nearly 5 decades after the fact to state that he was present at the first adjustment. D.D. Palmer's adjustment of Harvey Lillard is the pivotal event in the profession. It took 55 years for BJ to say, "Oh, did I not tell you before? Yes, I was there on that day and saw my father adjust Harvey with my own eyes. My father did not adjust T4 like he said numerous times. It was C2, and I personally witnessed it." This bombshell would be better received if there were indeed prior statements from BJ over the 5 decades. The 5 decades he spoke about all things chiropractic, but no such statement had been positively identified prior to 1950. We acknowledge that we have not located any statements from BJ Palmer stating it was specifically T4. However, there are several documented statements beginning in 1907 through the 1920s that BJ said Lillard felt a pop between his shoulders and the back of Harvey Lillard. Harvey Lillard was adjusted by his father. In his later writings, 1950s, BJ often spoke of we, his duality, him and innate. It is easier to accept BJ's statement that we were there that day, meaning that his innate was present. There is less confidence that the physical being of BJ Palmer was in the room that eventful day. Specific details surrounding the time of day of Harvey Lillard event have been revealed. We note that September 8th,
Never been revealed.
have never been revealed. We note that 18th of September 1895 was a Wednesday. The fourth floor of the Ryan Block building was the Palmer family home, in addition to housing the Palmer's magnetic cure. One would assume that as the janitor, Harvey Lillard was a regular presence throughout the building. B.J. Palmer was still a student in Davenport Public School through at least June 1897 as a student. He was, as a student, he would be most likely gone in the mornings and could indeed be in the Ryan Block building. His home and his father's office in the late afternoons when his father would be seeing patients. D.D. Palmer treated patients mainly in the afternoon, having the office hours from 1 to 6 p.m. Would the building janitor be present during the afternoon during patient hours or more in the morning or evenings? Did D.D. adjust Lillard during normal office hours or another time when Lillard was working in the building? We find nothing specific that would indicate BJ was not present that day in 1895 while talking about the possibility of BJ being present at the first adjustment. Chiropractor writer Joseph Strauss stated, "Stranger things have happened." Okay.
Joe, in working on this, did you guys have access or did you find any logs from, I know the logs have been posted periodically about pieces from Dee Dee's ledger about people that he saw. Did you ever find evidence about this in any of those, in any of the ledgers? Did you have any access to any of that?
There is multiple what we call Dee Dee Palmer day books. Those list each day who he saw on that day. It is mainly a financial record. So again, it's not clinical notes, it's the financial of they were charged initially $10 a week and then later $5 a week, and it accounts who was there and paid. It doesn't necessarily count everybody was there, it's recording who paid on that day.
Yeah.
So there could absolutely be people that were present and weren't paid. Harvey doesn't appear in any of those, but as the janitor, would he have paid? Probably not. Interesting though, the day book from this specific date is not currently in the Palmer archives. So from September 1895, there is no day book from the fall of 1895. No explanation to why it's not there or where it is, but it is not present in the collection. And a lot of conspiracy theories saying, oh, they've hidden it, they don't want us to see that Harvey's not there. And just the reality is, this stuff wasn't secure. It's only modern times that we have secure archives.
Right.
Up until previously, you know, this stuff was available to students or faculty, and it could have easily gotten legs in the 20s, and somebody had it as a trophy and took it, and it's never been seen again. I see no evidence that the Palmer School is purposely hiding or restricting this. They have no reason to it. It's not present. I'm shocked at what is present. I'm shocked at what is there is what I focus on, that we don't have everything. Of course we don't have everything, but I see no reason that this would be purposely hidden from the profession. If Harvey Lillard wasn't listed on September 18th, I don't think that damages the story in any way, shape, or form.
No.
He was the
I
janitor.
just wondered if you'd seen it. Yeah.
He wouldn't have been paying. He wouldn't have been recorded in there, so that doesn't damage the story in any way, shape, or form. But we don't have the day book from the fall of 1895. I suspect it was a trophy that somebody took decades before and just put it under their shirt and walked out with it. And at the time, nobody thought of having this stuff secured.
You know, I want to make a statement. You said, you know, $10 for the week. You know, it wasn't that long ago when Pasquale Sarasoli, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, they were charging $2 an adjustment. And Sigafus, same thing, you know, a couple of bucks of adjustment. That was a lot more money then. But $10 is pretty significant, 1895, 96, whatever it was. So, you know, that's pretty interesting stuff.
Patients were seen every day. They were seen daily.
Okay.
They worked on Saturday, so they were seen 6 days a week. They were seen daily until either they got better or they didn't get better.
Yeah.
And they stopped coming in. But it was a daily adjustment that was done until one of those two things happened. Either they stopped coming in and stopped paying, or they recovered and said, you cured me and I don't need care anymore.
Interesting.
It might be possible that the people that didn't have the affluence to pay for it didn't see him. But it also is possible he's seen people and didn't charge them that couldn't pay him too.
Correct. He absolutely saw patients that couldn't pay. He was a charitable man, and he saw people that needed care. The old DE, I see all patients regardless of condition or financial ability to pay. DD saw everybody. We know as he was taking students that his students saw the free patients went to his students. So why he had an active student, if somebody came in and they needed care and they couldn't pay, they got seen by the student.
Yeah, it's certainly possible that he saw Harvey as a courtesy to the guys cleaning the building.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again, there was the family home also. Again, they lived there. The practice was there. You know, I don't think the janitor in most situations is there during the busiest time of day. They're in the evening. They're there in the morning. They're there when nobody is there, and they're doing cleaning and emptying trash. They're doing all that kind of stuff. Dee was certainly present because he lived there. So to say Harvey was seen during office hours, there's And I know a lot of unknown here to say when he was seen, whether he paid, but fortunately the day book is not there to truly document was he there and did he pay? We don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cervical adjusting material. We have these statements from BJ that he was present and saw his father adjust C2. A component of these statements from BJ is that Dede feared causing injury, which would impact his new discovery if others tried cervical adjusting or medical outuary.
Outcry.
Outcry. That's a C. Okay, it looked like an E. All right. Or a medical outcry. So he intentionally hid the details of cervical adjusting. One possibility that has to be considered is that Dede did not know how to adjust the cervical spine yet, which makes perfect sense. Dede Palmer's initial students got all he knew at the time, and that was not much. For AP Davis in the fall 1898, it was 2 weeks of instruction. As he worked out more details, the teaching of chiropractic lengthened. Oakley G. Smith, a 1899 graduate of Palmer in Davenport, stated that he was not taught cervical adjusting during his initial training with Dede Palmer. There's been a lot about that lately. Okay, I'm going to read the quote if everybody's ready. I was taken to Davenport, Iowa. I've been talking all day. My mouth is tired. I was taken to Davenport, Iowa, where I took chiropractic treatment for 5 months. I was convinced of the fact that cures could be made by manipulation. A few days before I was 19, my tuition of $500 was paid for a course of instruction in chiropractic. The first thing I learned that there was no instruction to be given. There were no blackboards, no textbooks, no notes, not a single lecture. For 6 days, I witnessed the giving of a number of treatments. That was the sum total of information that was transferred in exchange for the tuition paid. The diagnosis I witnessed, it consisted of a quick gliding pressure from upper dorsal to middle lumbar to detect the position of
Apical.
apical prominences. That was the sum total of examination that was given to any patient. The treatment consisted of giving a single forceful lunge at the prominent apex, using the flat of the hand as a contact. That was the sum of the treatment. Nothing else was done. The patient's treatment for that day was finished. These treatments were given daily. There were no charts made, no histories taken, no records made. After being permitted to watch this identical form of treatment on a number of patients for 6 days, I was told that I knew all that was necessary for me to know, and that I should do the treating myself thereafter. As patients who could not pay applied for treatment, they were turned over to me. In a room set apart for me, I began to dispense the form of treatment that I was just described. There were no more instructions given to me. I was left wholly on to my own devices, thus left to myself. I soon began to make notes and keep records. I adopted an ambition to make a science out of manipulation. To this end, I applied every energy I had. I kept on treating and improving my technique. In that same room set aside for me the next 8 months. Okay, so that's where we're getting the scoop right there. I mean, you could read in the beginning of it where he was getting, there's frustration. He's also has an agenda at the end and using that as fuel of saying, I'm making the science of something. And to me, it sounds like he's putting down Bedidi a little bit in those first few months. Anyway, Any comment on that?
Uh,
Any input?
Well, like you said, the money was different back then. He paid $500, got to watch the guy for 6 days, and said, "Okay, you know all there is to know." And I'm going, $500. I paid $500 to watch you for a week. It's
I mean, is that really what happened? Did he just sit and
no,
really watch the guy? Come on.
it's unfortunately Smith's comments here. We took them at face value when we read this,
yeah,
because that was the information that we had, and it was firsthand accounts. That was Smith writing this. He was writing it many years later, and his opinions of Palmer and chiropractic had changed from when he was an 18-year-old person.
Yeah.
Our current project, we're looking at the actual 1899 document created by Smith in 1899, and it tells a very different story. So there was detailed instructions, shockingly detailed instructions. There was multiple adjusting techniques, not just the knife edge thrust into the thoracics. There was cervical adjusting was done. In fact, 2 different methods of adjusting the cervicals was taught by Oakley Smith, and he documents it in his own writing in 1899. There was a shockingly detailed amount of chiropractic instruction done. So this is Smith's comments at the time. We produced it at the time because that's what we had. And this is just a lesson to history of, you write what you know at the time, and there's no other information available. Since this was written, there's been more information available, and it is credible. It is also written by Smith, but it is written in 1899 during the period he was receiving instruction from DD, and it paints a very different story of instruction from DD. So I would
That's really
discount
important.
most of this as a revisionist commentary from Oakley, and it's not uncommon that you have a falling out and you're a little bit jaded, and your comments and words may be not as accurate as they should be. Maybe your memory of it is gone also, that you only remember what you want to remember about that time.
You could hear it in his tone in that, of exactly what you're saying. So thank you for that clarity, because that's extremely important. And that history doesn't end. You do the research, you come up with all these wonderful things, and then you find something more in the next paper and those things. So that's how rich our history really is. It's taking one thing at face value. There's so many facets to it. Thanks for that clarity, Joe. I really do appreciate that.
I was a little surprised by that when I did read it, like you say, Joe, because my understanding is that Didi was extremely knowledgeable about
Right.
medicine of the time, and that he wouldn't be imparting at least some of the information that he knew in that deep knowledge that he had to the students. He wouldn't just be, do this, do that. It doesn't
There was a
strike
lot of instruction
me.
given, not only just in chiropractic philosophy and the technique. There was instruction on how to run a practice, patient management,
Yeah.
clinical tips. This was an apprentice style system. You were in there with Didi. I believe he was correct that there was no lectures, there was no
Yeah.
textbooks, there was no blackboard in a traditional academic setup of you showed up for class at 8 o'clock and Didi lectured on a topic. I agree with that. But you were with him, and whatever the patient that day that we're seeing, Didi talked about them and imparted what he felt was needed to be imparted to his apprentice to care for patients, to help them get well, to understand why they were getting well and what was fundamentally wrong with them, as well as practice management tips were all imparted. It was shockingly detailed and organized. It was not a simple, oh, you're there for 2 weeks. Again, A.P. Davis was there for 2 weeks, but A.P. Davis was a medical doctor already. He had vast clinical experience, so his instruction would have been different than an 18-year-old high school student on how to make it as a healthcare practitioner. He needed different instructions than A.P. Davis.
Yeah.
But at the end of his quote, he states that he stayed there for the next 8 months.
Right. He must have gotten something out of it, right?
He returned. He returned to sharpen up. He covered Didi's practice for periods where Didi and Villa would go on vacation, and Oakley would run the clinic for 2 weeks while they were on vacation. So Smith is a remarkable person. In this quote from him, written decades later, paints a what I think is not the most accurate picture of his time learning from D.D. Palmer.
Got it. Now, we have an option right now. We've got a few more pages left. Should we finish this all tonight or hold it over for part 3? I think a part 3 would be in order because we're going to run over time. And I think it would be really, it's kind of a good place to stop and pick up again next week, reading about Oakley Smith. Anybody in agreement?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome, guys. You know,
maybe you figure out how to share it too. Again, since we have permission from the HC to share this, figure out.
If
again,
anybody,
people don't read this stuff, so it's easier to read than follow along with us.
If anybody knows how to attach it to a YouTube link or post it, even posting it on Facebook, when I post that in the comments or something, it just doesn't come out as a link. I'm working on how to do that properly. I am currently running into walls. So anybody has any ideas to do that, let me know. I'll ask chat later on today and see if we can get that, because this is valuable information. Now, Joe, I just want to clarify that new information you're just talking about, extensive notes and lecture and all that, or his classes. Is that coming out in your new book, or is that what you?
That's what Timothy had something else to do tonight. That's why I had a free evening that I could participate. But it is active project. It is, again, the notes. We've had them for 8 years, and studying them and documenting and making notes and checking just what's said there, what's not, and reorganizing it. And it is just a shockingly detailed instruction of chiropractic. I think that you could look at Oakley Smith's 1899 document and learn a tremendous amount about how to practice chiropractic, more so than I think if you read his 1906 book or even DD's 1910 book. There's tremendous amount of philosophical information in those, but as far as practicing as a chiropractor, Smith's 1899 manuscript covers so many just nuances of being in clinical practice and what they're looking for, how they determine. So what I worked on the last several days was nerve tracing. Nerve tracing is a component in there that's really most chiropractors who didn't come from a strong philosophical school probably have no idea. They've never heard of nerve tracing, know anything about what it is clinically, how it's done. So there's some detailed segments in there on chiropractic nerve tracing, and just the synopsis of it is really that was what Palmer was using to determine specificity, to determine what specific level is to be adjusted. So symptoms were a component, palpation was a component, kind of a regional to say, okay, we're dealing with somebody who has a kidney issue. We're looking at kidney place, which could be 3 levels from kidney place, but what specific level do you choose? You trace it, you nerve trace it, and that's how you tell it's T7 and not T8.
That is such juicy stuff. I'm so excited about this next book you've got coming out and this research you're doing. That is, if I could be more on the edge of my seat, I'm literally on the edge of my seat over that.
It delivers more every time we review the content and explain and discuss what is this saying, what does it mean. Our jaws just drop like, I can't believe this concept is being transmitted from Palmer to his apprentice in 1899. The DD knew this, understood it, and taught it at this early stage. At this point, chiropractic is about 3 years old.
Yeah.
As far as chiropractic, but he had been practicing nearly 9 years as a magnetic healer. So he wasn't an inexperienced clinical practitioner. But the ideas of chiropractic were very different than magnetic. And that's a component of the book too, is what was magnetic. And for the first time, we see an explanation of Palmer's actual magnetic procedures. of what does that mean? And many people think, oh, it's, you know, North Pole, South Pole, or positive and negatives, and it's nothing like that. But there's no other place that we see any specifics of, if you were seeing DD and he said he did a magnetic treatment on you, what was that? What was he doing? This is the first place we see it documented. It's not detailed, but there's enough passage there for us to see what that instruction was. And most importantly, he taught Smith this. So he hadn't abandoned magnetic at this point. He still instructed Oakley Smith on magnetic healing procedures in 1899. So he hadn't left it and said, I disown it, it's incorrect, it doesn't work. In fact, the complete opposite.
Still had merit. Yeah.
It's still something that he is actually instructing a student in some aspects of it.
Oh my gosh. Right. The next book on the list is Nerve Tracing. What is that? Volume 6 or something?
6, yeah.
6. I want to read that book. I don't know if it's in reprint. We have digital copies, but
it's a PDF. Certainly, it's been PDF. I don't know if there's a hard copy of it. I'm sure there is. The Delts have reproduced everything.
Okay, contact them.
You spoke of Oakley Smith's material as a manuscript. Was this papers that the family had that you've been going over?
Exactly. His family kept it for over 100 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Man.
Yes.
How many of those boxes have been thrown away?
Yeah, all this would have been unknown, would have been lost to time. There was no comparable document to this. There's Palmer writings, but as we discussed before, Palmer's published writings are mainly marketing. So he's got material he's putting out in the Chiropractor or the Chiropractic, you know, his broadsides, but it is marketing for patients, is marketing to attract students. It's I don't want to use the term propaganda, but its intent is very different than instruction of someone into how to practice. To say this person paid him $500 and is wanting to learn how to practice. That's what this document is. It's not just a hitting sensational claims of cures and come in and here's testimonials and come and see me and be cured by chiropractic, or come and learn the chiropractic method. Those were marketing material, and it's not the same information being conveyed because the intent of the publication is different.
This material, has it been digitized then, or you're going through actual papers?
It was handwritten in script. So he had a notebook, and this is something I just 2 weeks ago discussed with Timothy. It is a notebook. It is a numbered notebook. So you purchase the notebook, and it is page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, it's not like a 3-ring binder. We say, hey, here's a section. Let me rewrite that. And I don't like how this came out. Here's another draft. I'm going to reorganize it, open up the 3-ring binder, and put in the new page. This was written in script, sequentially, page by Oakley Smith in 1899. Extremely difficult to do, to write a book and say, page 1, it's a dark and stormy night, and Jimmy sees a cat run across the road, and page 102, and they lived happily ever after the end. That's a very difficult thing to write that way. Nobody does that now. And again, this was written page by page in cursive writing with drawings, color drawings in script. And so that's where the organization is important, that we're reorganizing it, because he's writing page by page. He returns to a concept, and then several pages happen, and he comes back to it, and just the flow is off. But when you piece it together with the right flow, you see, oh my God, A, B, and C now connect into this very comprehensive chiropractic concept. But he was writing in, you know, each page one at a time in a numbered document. So you can't tear out a page because the numbers don't match.
Wow.
Extremely difficult to do.
Extremely difficult to do. And then also you've got to read this handwriting, and you're basically translating, you know, so
we've done that, you know, we've transcribed it, and there was some words that we didn't no, we couldn't read because of the script, and talk that out to say, okay, this is probably what it is. And there's probably only 3 or 4 that we say we don't know what that word is. But I believe it's over 100 pages of handwritten cursive writing. It's a substantial document.
It's kind of
So
on
we're-
loan to you boys, or is the family's going to keep it?
Excuse me?
These notes are on loan to you for this research, and the family's going to keep them?
Correct. Right now, Timothy has the actual document there for us to review. What ultimately becomes of it, I'm out of that. That's not, nobody's asked me what happens to it. I have a file that has the transcription of it that I can review and look at to doing this work. What becomes of the actual document, I have no idea.
Well, everybody, this was awesome. Joe, I hope you can join us next week too. Partly of stopping the reading a little earlier so we can actually talk about this and break it down and get some of that really good juice. I'm excited about your new research coming out too, and all the stuff you've done in the past. So everybody, it's been absolutely awesome tonight. We're going to pick up right on that. I think it's the third to the last page. And, we're going to pick up there next week for part 3, and then we'll be done with this part. I'm glad you added such great commentary, Dr. Foley, Dr. Hoagland, and Dr. Lichter. I appreciate you all. And thanks for all of your, and Jessica too. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Huh?